If you've ever found yourself stuck in the same relationship patterns, questioning your worth, or wondering why dating feels so confusing these days, this episode is going to hit home. Today, we're exploring how our earliest relationships, the ones formed in childhood, shape the way we show up as adults. We dive deep into attachment styles and how understanding your own can be a game changer when it comes to creating secure, connected relationships. We also talk about the often overlooked link between self-worth and the way we love, communicate, and even attract partners. You'll hear the story of someone who spent 7 years as a school counselor before stepping into the clinical therapy world, a shift that was deeply influenced by the emotional weight of the pandemic. We talk about that transition, the identity unraveling that can come when you step out of a long-held role, and the importance of knowing who you are outside of your career or relationship status. And if you're single or know someone who is, you'll definitely want to stick around for a conversation on modern dating, setting realistic expectations, and how to align your dating profile with who you truly are through a powerful workshop called Solo to Soulmate. This conversation is full of depth, clarity, and wisdom, all from the brilliant mind and heart of Claire Welton. So with that, welcome to the show. So I would actually like to start first by just going through your journey as far as like you were in schools as a counselor, so you were working with children.
Yeah.
Were you like in high schools, elementary?
Yeah, mostly high school. Nope,
Okay.
no elementary for me.
Ooh,
Yeah.
the drama maybe.
Yeah, there was a lot of drama.
Experience. Okay.
Yeah, and it was in the middle and post COVID too, so there was a lot there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like if that was me, I would want to work with high school students.
Yeah.
But I can see that it would come with a lot at the same time.
Yeah,
It's a lot more than just elementary students who maybe just don't know how to deal with their emotions a little bit. But you get to high school, it's like this whole new...
You don't know what's coming through that door.
Yeah. So how did you go from that to then wanting to move more on the clinical side where now you're working as a therapist?
Yeah. I probably started a little bit with COVID. When I first got my master's, I was like, I'm going to live and die in schools, like great pension, everything's good. I ended up working at Ladue High School. I was at SLU High and Vianney too. So I did private and public. And after the shift, I think after COVID, it just kind of changed. Like I felt like the dynamic from school counselor became more like administrative work. And then you kind of saw less accountability on the kids, and we were kind of parenting more. People were kind of getting away with things. So that was not enjoyable. But I think the positive thing that made me realize this is what I want to do in the clinical side is that it would be like those one-off conversations with students who would just be in my office for like 45 minutes who really needed to talk. Like I knew they weren't trying to skip class. I knew they just had some heavy things going on. And we just had a really good organic conversation. And I was like, this is what I want to do.
So you almost like found more of a passion in what you were doing to where you were like, okay, I need to take this a step further.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
It was awesome.
So with that, you also are very into attachment style healing.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to just dive right into that because I feel like I'm hearing this more and more.
Yeah.
I actually even had a podcast on this before, attachment style. So just now having you on to take it even a step further and really dive into it.
Yeah.
And the attachment styles that you see the most, but also like how they're showing up for people.
Yeah, that's a good question. So do you know your attachment style?
I've never been like,
I'll give you a quiz.
Okay.
I'll give it to you later. I'll give you the quiz later.
So I won't tell you what I think I am then, and I'll see what you say.
Okay. Yeah, I'll send it to you later. But yeah, there's a lot of power in knowing your attachment. So when I started to learn about it, I was like, okay, this is really neat because it's something that happens organically. It happens within the first 2 years of our life. So when you have your attachment style, it really comes from how you were parented, right? Well, I guess your connection, I should say. So John Bowlby was the one that kind of researched this. So they would see and do experiments with moms and their children, like leaving and coming, and see how the children reacted with them. And so that kind of was like, okay, this is the kind of style that they are. So there's two umbrellas. There's secure attachment and then insecure attachment. And so most people, I would say, are actually secure. But if we're talking about dating, then you're going to see a whole different pool of that. So with under insecure, we have avoidant attachment and anxious attachment. And then there's one that is a mix of both avoidant and anxious, which is kind of like a push and pull. So with the securely attached people, you'll have people who are good at communicating, who aren't afraid of confrontation or having those critical conversations, whether it be in your career or your relationships. They know what they want. They know what they're worth. They won't kind of stick around in the situation where they're not treated the way they should be or the way they believe they should be. With the insecure, it's kind of what it sounds like. So with the anxious, you'll have, when that gets ignited, it's like, right, the anxiety comes out, and usually they're kind of pulling towards or pushing towards the person. They're overthinking, they're overreacting, they're getting nervous, right? And so then you have the avoidance who kind of do the opposite. When their attachment style gets ignited, they like pull away. Because if you look back to the childhood, maybe their caregivers weren't always there. And so it was very unpredictable. And so for them, it feels really safe to be like, this is getting too close. I have to kind of take care of this for myself. So yeah, I would say secure is definitely, that's kind of like the difference between them. Secure is definitely the most prevalent, which is great news. But yeah, when you're in dating, you'll see a lot of the avoidant out there because they're the ones that avoid the relationships. The dating pool is kind of full of them.
And this may just be my experience. I don't know if this is facts, but I feel like women, the more anxious attachments that I see, I feel like are women, and men lean more avoidant.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah, I don't know if
true?
it's necessarily factual as well,
Okay.
but it is
what you're
you
seeing
see
too.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, you definitely see that because if you
Why
think
is
about
that,
it,
do you think?
Well, I mean, think about our society, right? Like men are told, shove your emotions down, don't talk, like do this, all this. So like, it's like, I don't want to have to do what it takes to have a healthy relationship, or I don't know how to do what it takes to have a healthy relationship. So it's easier for me to just kind of pull away and start fresh than to have to start to delve deep, because you tend to see, if you're talking about like a romantic relationship, you tend to see the avoidant come out when the relationship gets deeper. And so when you see the anxious a person, and then they start to get more anxious, so they're like questioning, they're going through, and then the avoidant is pulling back. So it's this kind of like push and pull until the avoidant kind of falls off.
Yeah. And then it's like, or I've heard it's be called like the runner chaser dynamic too.
Yeah. It's just giving names for something that we have always felt as humans.
Yeah. So I would love to also dive into having you explain how unhealed attachment styles can impact friendships also. Because I think when we hear the word attachment styles, like our mind automatically just goes to like relationships.
Yep.
Or intimate relationships anyway. And also, okay, so I feel like I'm a fearful avoidant.
Okay. So you're the push and pull.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm the push and the pull. You never know what you're going to get. But I feel like I'm noticing, the more that I'm aware of that about myself and working to heal that, I also feel like I'm noticing myself being a fearful avoidant for different things in my life that aren't just me and my significant other.
That's spot. Yeah.
And I've like, for instance, finances. I'm an avoidant.
Okay.
That's my avoidance side. Or, just when things are tough, I notice myself getting super anxious around it, and then I just avoid it.
Yeah.
So can you dive into that a little bit about how it impacts other things other than just your significant relationship or intimate relationships, and how it can impact your friendships as well too?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because I think you're right. It kind of goes into that category. People think that, but you can see it in different aspects of your life. It's where you kind of feel your safety, right? Like if you look at your attachment as your safety levels, where it feels, or where you feel overwhelmed. So when you're feeling overwhelmed, the emotions come, anxiety, all of that. When you're feeling maybe unsafe or unsure or not know how to tackle something, you become avoidant, right? So you can see that in tasks like you just described, but you can definitely see it in friendships. So there are people that are highly sensitive people, and maybe those are the types of people that you might feel like you have to walk on eggshells with, like, or around, even in friendships where you're like,
I'm thinking of like 5 in my life off the top of my head.
and it's hard, right? And so you're like, I get anxious around that, or like they call your phone or text your phone, you're like, "Ooh, like that's a lot. I don't want to have to deal with that right now," or so you avoid.
I was gonna say I feel like that puts me into my avoidance.
Yeah.
When I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's a lot
It
coming
can
at me.
be a lot. Yeah. And so, I think it's definitely prevalent in friendships. I think we just look at it differently because we don't maybe try as hard with friendships because we can leave a little bit maybe more easily than a romantic relationship. But yeah, I think it is there. And so it's important, like when you have like-minded friends, like those easygoing friends that you can just have, like those low maintenance friends, I would almost equate to being more secure, right?
Mhm.
They're not going to get mad at you if you're not contacting them all the time.
Yes.
They're getting forgiving. They know your schedule is busy. So I think like when you look at it that, like you can say, okay, my low maintenance friends maybe are my friends that are more secure and can understand, they forgive, they're not going to be very expectant of my time or all of that, where maybe you have them more the friendships that have high expectations of you. They want you to do everything, always be there, and then
Kind of
you're
like a spouse in a way.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like, I got kids. I can't,
Correct.
constantly be there to answer the phone or hang out just at
Yep.
the drop of the hat.
Yeah. So you kind of feel that tension too with
Yes.
friendships. And so, yeah.
What is some advice for someone who is maybe listening to this and are like, whoa, okay, that's me. I have those friendships.
Yeah.
And maybe like you love and care about the person, but you're trying to find the best way to navigate that friendship with them because you don't want them out of your life. You're just
Right.
like, I need you to really just take a little step back
Yeah.
and, respect my boundary or something. So what's some advice that you have for someone with those types of friendships?
Yeah. Open and honest communication. And it's hard. But maybe sitting down and just like having a conversation where it could be organic too. Like maybe they're calling and you have the time to answer and just be like, hey, like I'm like doing this, so I just want to let you know, like I can't always answer my phone or I can't always be there. I've had friends who like asked me to do things for them and gave very little notice, and I had to have that conversation like, hey, I want to help you.
Mhm.
Like I want to be there for you. I want to support you, but I also have to be given time. I have to be given space. I have to be given the opportunity to do that. And sometimes friends aren't going to like that, and sometimes they'll listen. So it just depends on their maturity level, like their level of emotional maturity.
Yeah. And I feel like that can definitely have an impact on the friendship too.
Absolutely.
If they're not receiving it in the way that you're intending, like, hey, love you. I just can't be everything for you all the time.
Correct. And that's such a good point. You can't be everything for everybody. And I always tell my clients when I work with them, like, this is like an unhealthy relationship where two people are connected all the time. Because if you lose that person, be it a friendship or a relationship, like if they're gone, you've got no other like plugins, right? But if this is a healthy relationship where you've got each other, but then you're also plugged into your hobbies, your friends, your other things. So you can't expect, like you just said, someone to be your absolute everything. It's not fair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of what makes a healthy relationship, whether it's your friendships, whether it's with your significant other, and I've noticed this in myself too, is that self-worth plays such a major part in that.
Yeah.
And, I say that I've noticed it in myself because the more that I've worked on my self-worth and having that self-love and healing, I've noticed that I am now attracting keyword that I'm now attracting I want to say like higher frequency or just stronger, more genuine relationships into my life. And it's becoming more of a quality over quantity.
100%.
But I am happier and they're more healthier relationships now. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like how someone listening who is like, oh, well, I'm definitely noticing that I don't have as much quality in my life. It's more, I have a ton of friends, but I'm not getting that genuine connection. Or I'm going on many dates, but I'm not getting that genuine connection. And they're noticing a lack of self-worth is the reason for that. And so can you talk about how you can start to grow your self-worth to begin to attract those healthy relationships?
Yeah. And you're so right. It does start with that because we attract what we put out there and we're not even aware of it, right? Like when I look back in my 20s and I'm like, I thought I was so ready to like meet a husband, and I would like look back what I was putting out there, like I was not putting out wifey material.
Yeah.
Like I absolutely was not, but I felt it. So it's really hard because there's that disconnect sometimes. So self-worth doesn't always look like I'm happy and all this, it can look a different way on social media than it does in real life. So I think like getting to know yourself and what you really want and being honest, because I think that we have a lot of yes people in our life. Like, yeah, girl, you got it. Like, yeah, you leave him. He's 5'2". Go ahead. He's not going to know, And
or
so,
friends that are like, no, you're amazing. You have everything going for you, rather than being like, girl, you got to work on XYZ because you're bringing that to these dates or
absolutely,
these relationships, and that's why they're ending badly or
Yeah. So we just don't have enough honesty with our groups that we affiliate with ourselves, and we find people to validate our thoughts. And I think that's a big mistake. So I'm feeling like I'm good enough and I need this. So I need everybody to validate it me. And if you don't validate me, then goodbye. Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm never accepting truth of myself to actually self-reflect and be like, who am I? Am I really worth this? Is there anything I need to change? And the more authentic you can become within yourself, like that's how it's gonna reflect, right? And when you do that, like in turn, I work with a lot of people with social anxiety. When you're more authentic, you like there you are. You're not trying. You don't have to like use your social battery up because you're worried about what people are gonna think. You're just authentic, so you're gonna attract that, which exactly does what you said. It attracts the quality, right? And it will slim down your friends for sure when you get that self-worth. But like you said, what you get from the friends that you do have is it's so good. So journaling, like reflecting, asking yourself like questions, like, what am I lacking? What am I really wanting? Like there's that saying cognitive dissonance, right? With the way that we're thinking, believing, and acting and the way like we think we are, right? There's a gap there. And so really like lining it up. So I do that with a lot of my clients. Like you say you value this, you say you want this, you say you're awesome and you love yourself, but actually everything you're doing is telling me that you don't love yourself and you don't value yourself. So measuring up what you're saying versus what you're actually doing is a good way to start to reflect and like start to learn to love yourself.
That's good. I like that. And so true, really, because I've been there where what I was putting out with my words was definitely not reflected in my everyday habits and my thoughts and all these things. So one thing that I did want to kind of go back to was I found and I definitely still feel like I am fully on my self-worth journey. Believe me.
I think we should never stop.
Exactly. But I do feel like the more I'm into it and really just like the further along I've gotten into this healing and having more self-love and all of that, I have started to appreciate people with opposing thoughts or, kind of like that constructive criticism from my friends. And I'm appreciating friendships that come with that. And so do you think that's a key sign for someone who is like starting to lean more healed and healthy and having that self-worth is like you begin to appreciate like, hey, I appreciate that you that you reflected that back to me, that I wasn't showing up in the way that I may have should have.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that means your defenses are going down. Yeah. Right. Like we can't hear when our defenses are up. Like it's all like we take everything personally. We can't hear or say anything that goes against our core beliefs. Right. Or what we think our core beliefs are. Right. Like, so again, why we go and get those yes people and those validation friends, because that lifts us up. But if somebody goes against us, so I totally think that is such a good point that like as you become more authentic and your self-worth increases, you're able to appreciate or at least hear it, right? And respect it because your defense levels are down, because you're like, this isn't going to affect me whether I believe it or not. So why can't I hear it? Why can't I understand and try to listen and open up my mind to something else than what I just know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Yes. And I would love to go back to more like significant relationship
Yeah.
type of relationships and talk about how, let's say you have a client
Mhm.
and they just left a long-term marriage.
Mhm.
And they're just kind of, I feel like I've seen this. And so that's why I'm bringing up like a specific scenario
That's perfect. Yeah.
where they leave a long-term marriage and they just kind of are like, I need to get back out there. I need to have that, like, and I don't even know if it's necessarily like connection or if it's just filling a void of like maybe
comfort.
they're avoiding they're avoiding their own healing.
Yeah.
But what would you say to somebody who just left a long-term marriage and they're like, well, I want to date again. And you can very clearly tell you're not healed. You're not ready for the dating scene.
Yeah.
What are some things that you say to them?
Yeah, I'd come at it with some curiosity. Why do you want to date? What's your expectation to date? Do you want to get married again? Do you want to just have fun? Right? I have some clients that are going through divorce that are like, I just want to have fun. I didn't have that. I want to have fun. Okay. And then I ask questions about it. Like, what are your thoughts? What are you expecting from this? Right. But then like putting it back on them. Like, what are your expectations? Because if your expectation is to get in a healthy relationship, probably not a great idea. Probably you have to take the time because you're not even going to have time to focus on yourself when you have that significant other. Like I call them serial daters, right? You're just constantly going because you don't want to deal or reflect with yourself. It's like an exiled part of ourself that we're like, we don't want to touch that. So yeah, we're constantly avoiding by doing that. So I would say like asking them questions like, what is your purpose of wanting to do this right now? Do you think this is the best idea for you right now? Like, what would it look like for you to like take some time and heal? What do you feel like you learned from your last relationship? What do you think you need to still work on? Because we all have a part of it. I work with couples now and, I tell them, I'm like, okay, even if like you're part of the relationship or the problem or the whatever is point one, like still own that. We all have some kind of point in a conflict. So
like it takes two to tango.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to go back a little bit again.
Yeah,
So
no problem.
talking about how like your attachment style had a lot to do with like what was rooted in childhood and like your childhood experiences. So can you talk a little bit more about that and how that shapes our attachment, our self-worth, our identity? Because I do feel like, even for me too, speaking on my own experience, I grew up in a family, my parents were divorced. However, I wasn't lacking anything basically.
Right,
And so, you grow up with this mindset of like, I had a good childhood, nothing was wrong. And so it takes some time or sometimes having your own children to then wake you up to like, oh no, that was kind of dysfunctional. Or like, okay, maybe it wasn't this secure childhood that I thought. And then, I'm noticing now that I know about my own attachment style.
Yeah.
It's making a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that and how maybe some key things of ways that childhood shaped how childhood shaped someone's life who may be like an anxious attachment or that fearful avoidant or just a full-blown avoidant.
Yeah. Yeah. So typically with that or like the mix, you're going to be looking at like some trauma, right? But in your, like for your example, right, you're like, okay, well, I had a pretty good, like
parents were
childhood.
normal.
Yeah, right. But when you think about it too, when you look at it from like a psychological standpoint, like you had a divorced family. So like in your mind, like subconsciously it could be like, okay, well, I don't know like what's going to happen. Like there's still a lot of question marks, even though that was okay. You didn't feel neglected. Like maybe that led more space for just questions and not knowing full answers or the security of knowing like when I'm going to be at this person's house or this person's house or what is this going to look like, right? Again, it might not have felt that heavy because as a children, we have very limited ability to think, right?
It was all I knew too.
It's all you know.
They divorced when I was 2. So I was like, I don't even know what it's like to have, like, you have one house? What?
Right. And that's so, I'm glad you said that. It's very crucial because as children, like whatever situation we're living in, that's normal to us. So like if you're a homeless child, that's normal to you.
That's your norm.
Right. And so when you grow up and you start to realize, like you said, you look at your friends, you're like, wait a minute, one house? You don't go like
one
back and
Christmas,
forth.
one Thanksgiving.
That's not fun. Right?
Yeah.
And so you get used to your norm. And so, yeah, it could be something as simple as that where you are like, I'm just not sure. Or you could kind of tell yourself something. So I believe like anxious attachment or like self-worth or those beliefs can happen also from like the stories or the things that you tell yourself, right? So there was a time, I'm biracial, and I remember like nobody ever said anything in my family, but I grew up with my white family, but I remember being really young and like standing in a house. We were there and I like looked down at my skin and I looked up at everybody else and I looked down at my skin and I looked up at everyone else and I was like, I'm different. And that belief like formed so much of the negativity of my self-worth, and nobody told me. Like it was an observation that I had. So I think that can also play in it
because the conversations weren't there prior to you having this
yeah.
acknowledgement.
Yeah. And nobody said anything. I just was like, oh, this is different. I have to like earn my place. I'm different. I don't belong here. So I worked really hard, or I did these things, or like I got my doctorate in education and then left education. But, you know, I did all these things because I felt like I have to make up because this isn't what everybody else is.
So it could even be like something that you tell yourself. Like it sounds, because that's what it sounds like for you. It was like nobody said anything to you about it.
Correct.
You created these stories for yourself.
Yeah.
So that could happen for anybody else too in childhood. It doesn't necessarily have to be like your grandpa was like, you're not good at football.
Right.
And that's just what you told yourself.
Yeah. And that it can be that direct, but it also, you know, like I grew up without a dad. So that's all I knew. But then I'm like, oh, I'm fine. Like, it doesn't bother me. And then like, fast forward to my 20s, like talk about daddy issues, right? Like I was like, oh, okay. I actually don't know my worth because I've never seen how a good male treats a woman. I just know that my mom was cheated on. And so I know that like, you know, that's what I knew, but all subconscious. And like, that's what makes it so hard. That's why it's important to do the work. So going back to like your friend who's going like the serial dater, right? Like if you don't do the work, you're not going to have the time to illuminate some of these things that are like really ingrained in you.
Yeah. Do you feel like when you had children, it brought up a lot of that stuff for you, like 10x?
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to be the one that like was that generational curse breaker, like of these things that I didn't know. And so luckily I have a great husband who's an awesome dad who, you know, shows my children what it's like to have a good father and a good male role model, right? Or what I did. I grew up with a mom who always talked about her weight. And yeah, do I struggle with my weight? Sure. But I vowed I would never talk about it in front of my children. Like I heard, right? Because that's what passed it down.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I didn't have good habits. And so we're passing healthy habits down to our children and all of that. So I'm really aware of all of that and try to just not put it on my kids at all. Like I don't want them to know anything. Like just live your life and be happy and be a kid. And I don't want to put my stuff on you.
Yeah. I recently started like putting words to this for myself because it was almost like I was subconsciously aware of it, but I wasn't like fully aware of it until recently that I'm like, whoa, my daughter hit 7 and it was like something weird happened where it was like everything from my childhood just started coming up out of nowhere. Yeah. And I don't know if it was because maybe she's at a specific age that she reminds me of me and I'm able to like see that little inner child that needed healed and maybe it triggered that. But definitely when my son was born, he's my oldest, and that kind of started bringing up some things like, okay, I feel this way about my son. Like, why wasn't this, you know, why didn't I feel this growing up? And from my parents and vice versa. And it was just, it was interesting when I had kids. So that's why I asked, because I've talked to a few people about it and they've all said the same things. Like, oh yeah, when I had kids, it really started bringing up some childhood stuff to where like before you have kids, you're just blissfully unaware almost. You're like, oh, what?
Great.
Yeah.
I love being ignorant to that
Yes. I was like, can we go back to that?
I didn't know there wasn't a portal open.
Right.
And now, you can't go back. It's like the Matrix. Like now you know, like everything. Yeah. And you kind of view it from a different lens. And it does. It's wild when you can do.
And I
can
love
see
that you just brought up generational curse too, because I literally just had this conversation with my sister yesterday.
Really?
And I had this really weird epiphany. So, I mean, obviously generational curse, I feel like is a buzzword.
Yeah.
You hear it a lot,
You
you know?
do. Yeah.
And I've always said like, oh, you know, I'm definitely ending generational curses, all the things, but I don't feel like I fully grasped what that means until yesterday when I was talking to my sister. And I was explaining to her that, you know, a lot of adults in our lives growing up weren't capable of giving us unconditional love. And we were kind of having a little bit of a powwow about that of like, why, or what were some things that maybe happened in their life. And then she brought it up to me. She was like, well, yeah, that's a generational curse. It's that they weren't modeled that and their parents weren't modeled that. So it is just this long line of generations that weren't taught unconditional love or weren't taught how to, you know, not unintentionally degrade someone, you know.
Does
that make sense? To where you're like, oh, you know, you're getting a little bit of cellulite on the back of your legs. But in their mind, they're like, oh, well, I'm helping her out because I'm letting her know. And it's like, well, no, that was trauma that I experienced at 11 years old from my grandmother, or, you know, or whatever.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of things too of hearing like, oh, don't let your head get too big or, well, you know, that's one person's opinion. And you like when you're talking highly of yourself and you're like, I'm the best barrel racer there is. And, you know, hearing from maybe my grandparents like, well, that's one woman's opinion. That was always something that I heard a lot growing up. But it is just really like when you're taking that in as a child and that curse is being passed down to you. And you're growing up then with this mindset of like, oh, keep small. I'm not that great. Like it's, you know, or struggling with weight issues or financial issues or whatever. And so, yeah, being that generational curse breaker for your children is, I think, like one of the bravest things you can do. And
it's hard.
Because it is hard. It's so hard. But
because we have those habits.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm really glad you brought that up because it gave me this chance to talk about it because yesterday when I had that epiphany, I was like, wow, that landed different than it has before.
Yeah. Yeah. And you look at it too, when you look at the different generations, right? Like, you know, our grandparents were like World War II and all that time. And like, you know, one person typically worked, the mom typically stayed home. You know, you have all these different things and these expectations. And like their parents were Great Depression and World War I. And all of that like fuels why we operate the way we do, right? And we always think, and to go back to that saying too, is like, not all parents, but like most parents are doing the best that they can.
Yeah,
like,
they were.
You were the parent for the first time. Like you're learning to be a parent just like they're learning to be a human and a child and growing up. And like, no matter how old you get as a parent, like it's your first time being a parent of a 7-year-old girl. And, you know, your son at his age, like it's your first time. So you're learning along with them. And I think we're just in a generation that's like, let's heal. Let's be kind. Like this world is really destructive.
Thank God too.
Yeah,
I'm ready for it.
Yeah, this world sucks. Like, you know, like let's bring in some light. And so, you know, I think it's just a great way to do that.
Yeah. And too, I think humanizing my parents was like the best thing I could have done for myself because when you take them off that pedestal that you've basically put them on your whole life up until this point. You know, you're able to look at them like it was their first time as a parent.
It's so healing.
They didn't know what the hell they were doing.
Right.
Because I thought all along like I was going to retire from wedding photography and then had my identity crisis and I was like, wait a minute. I don't think this is it. So how are you coaching people through that little bit of identity issue?
Yeah. Well, I think it starts with like, let's talk about our atmosphere too, like with social media. Like there's so much out there of all these things, but then like, and this is not a political question or post or saying is what I'm trying to say. It's not political, but like, let's be real. Like people are telling you can be whoever you want to be. Like you can change everything about you down to your gender, right? We didn't have this 20 years ago, 30 years ago, like as prevalent as we do now. So when you can change anything and everything about you, why wouldn't you, right? Like, why wouldn't you be confused is what I mean. Like, why wouldn't you be like, am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing this? I can do this. Everyone's becoming an entrepreneur now, which is fantastic. But then I think it also aids to the, what do I do then, right? Like,
yes. Like there's almost too much on the board.
There's too much, right?
Yeah.
Which then turns into that analysis paralysis, which, right?
Ooh,
like
yeah,
we could go everywhere, right? But like, yeah. So I think it's hard because I think people put their identity in their careers. People put their identity into their bank accounts, into what they look like, into what cars they drive. All of these things hold their identity, and all of these things are conditional things, right? All of these things are not promised. They can change. So your identity is like on this really rocky surface or foundation. And so like if you bring in faith, I don't really know how to describe this without faith, but like, so I guess maybe you could help me too if you can think of a more creative way. But like, as a Christian, right, your identity is a child of God. Your purpose then is to glorify his name and to like spread his word and all of that. And the way that you do that is through your assignments, right? So like my assignment as a mom, as a therapist, as a friend, as a wife. But the problem is like when I take my identity and I put it down in my assignments, like then I get stuck. So my friend Maria talked about this and I just thought it was huge. Like if anything changed, if I lost my license and I couldn't be a therapist anymore, like I'm having an identity crisis, right? Like I don't know who I am anymore, as opposed to like, oh, I still know who I am. I still know my purpose, but like, I'm just like changing gears down here. So when you can separate what you do from who you are, it can be such a clarifying thing. So I really work with clients on doing that, of like separating who they are at a foundation, at a core, who they believe that they are, like what their purpose is because of who they believe they are, and then detaching their jobs and all of that from their identity and their purpose.
That's so good. Because I'm thinking off the top of my head, like how many people you say, okay, write me a bio. And they're like, okay, I'm a mom.
Yeah.
I'm a teacher.
Yep.
I'm a wife. And like, that's all they can get.
Yeah,
and
like,
it's
that's your
like,
title.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
your
And I'm like,
title.
well, that's what you do, but that's not who you are. So,
Yeah.
I've been there too, where like struggled with my bio. And actually that was like one of the trigger points of like, okay, I need to go into some deep self-discovery and figure out who I am, because I can't even write a biography right now. And it's like, I don't even need to write like this huge long thing, but I can't even get past just mom, wife, and wedding photographer.
That's huge.
So
that's interesting. Yeah, because I work with my clients a lot. I just did this with a client today. We talk about values, and I give them a list of values, and they still say like, this is really hard. Like they cannot pick their values. And I think that's a really hard thing too. Like, we say these things, again, we talk, but are we really saying anything? We know how to sound good, but what are we actually saying? So like when I have people sit down and actually pick out their values, they struggle with that.
Yeah.
And like your values are really your identity, what you're made up of, right? That would be more of a secular way to look at it too. Like what you value is what your identity is made up of. But then there's that tension that people feel because they say they value this, yet their life does not look anything like that. So then I have them gauge that. Like you say you value this, when you look at your life on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being, yep, it mimics it perfectly. Where are you at? 2. Okay, tension. We're not happy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Making the list is huge. I just hosted a mastermind class, and one of the things that I had them do in between the week is, because we met every week. And so one thing that I had them do for like homework is they wrote down their 5 non-negotiables. And mostly every single one of them were like, this was interesting because I had not I've never sat down and really figured out the things that I'm not willing to go without and what I value.
Yep.
And, they were saying like it really brought some interesting thoughts up to the surface. And it just made me realize for myself too, like when I did my list, and which was why I brought it to the mastermind, because I was like, wow, okay. So look at everything that I'm investing time and money
100%.
and so much of myself into, and it's not even on my list.
Yeah.
It's not even on my top 10, And and then it makes you gives you that insight of like, okay, well, these are your values. This is what your non-negotiables. Like, this is who you are. This is your identity.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's really, I wanted to bring that up about the list and how huge it is for maybe someone listening who are, thinking about doing it. Definitely do it. Make that what are your values? What are your 5 non-negotiables? Like, what are the things that make up you?
And what do they look like? Like, identify them, right?
Yes.
Because if you say, I value stability, I get that a lot. Well, what is stability to you? Is it financial stability? Is it in my relationship, we're not fighting, I feel secure in who I'm with? What is that? And do that with your partner too, because I think we think that, everyone thinks the same as us. So if I define stability this way, then they must too, right? And that's just intrinsically how we kind of work and think through things. And so it's really important to say, okay, I value this, but what does that actually look like? How do I want that to play out in my life? And write that down, go even a little bit deeper. And I think that can be really helpful.
Yes, definitely. So we are going to go into dating now.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because you have Solo to Soulmate workshop.
Yeah.
But we're going to start at the top of the list here.
I love it.
And so I would love for you to explain the biggest mistakes that you see when someone is trying to attract a partner. And I do want to also add that I'm seeing this a lot on TikTok.
Yeah.
I'm seeing these young women talk about, I want this partner with XYZ and they got to have this and make this amount of money and blah, blah, blah. And then you're looking at the women that are saying this though, and they themselves are not in the energy to attract that.
Yes.
So if you can go more into that and the biggest mistakes that you're seeing.
Yeah. I love that you said that because it's a wake up call. People aren't going to like it, but my husband and I talk about this a lot. People again are not realistic with where they are. So, 100% of women want the top 1% of men. Problem number one, right? 100% of women are this is what I want, which is that song, the finance 6'2", blue eyes, all that stuff, right? So 100% of women want the top 1%. And then they're not realistic after that. It's okay, the biggest question I think that people could ask themselves is, if I make this list of what I want, all these things, is this person that I'm creating on this piece of paper, am I going to be on their list? Is the person that I am right now going to be on their list? Nobody asks that. They just think, I'm good enough. And sweetie, you're probably not, right? Most of us are not, right? Most of the 1% of what we're wanting we put qualities on there like people in Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
So we're not being realistic about it.
From a Nicholas Sparks novel.
Right. Okay.
That's our guy.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's it. So, okay. I have a reel scheduled to go out at 6:00 tonight. And it literally, and the last thing I said was stop looking for a guy from a Colleen Hoover book.
Oh. That would be nice.
But I think that's a part of it too. Think about movies, think about Hollywood, think about reality TV even. Is this false sense of hope of what we deserve and what we want. And but we're not looking at the longevity and the reality of these relationships or the depth of these relationships. And I was talking to somebody, even I think they were they were only in 8th grade. And I'm do you like anyone? Do you have a crush on someone? And they're no, none of them are the guys in the books I read. I'm sweetie, they're not real.
Yeah, these are lab created.
Right. This is the woman's perfect man she's writing. He's going to say everything right. And so I think the biggest mistake is that we have these really big unrealistic expectations and we don't look at ourselves and compare it to the reality of who's in your bracket, right? Who is in your bracket realistically. And I think that's so that kind of ties back into values and identity too, of knowing yourself, to be honest with yourself and say, okay, this is probably where I need to be. Yeah. And I think the problem, on the flip side, so I think that's really the women's problem. I think the men, because of the communication the women are giving, right? I'm boss babe, I'm this, I don't need no man. We've got this narrative out there. So men are well, why does she need me?
It's so off-putting. Yes. I feel if I was a man and I'm seeing you basically tell me you don't need me,
right?
I'm going to be okay, well, I'm going to go.
Right. Or I don't need to try as hard, or we're seeing just I need a man who does this, but we're telling men that we don't value that. We're telling men we don't need somebody to open the door for us, or we don't need anybody to do this for us. and yet you're still expecting it. So like the 99% of men that most of us are going to get are thinking, okay, well, they want that 1%. So I'm going to be the asshole, or I'm going to be this, and I'm going to be this. Well, honey, you can't be that because you're not the 1%, but we're giving them the narrative that that's what we want. And so the men are becoming jerks, or they're doing these things. And like, so it's totally a mess right now. It's a mess.
It seems like it's just I've been married since I was 18. I've been married since I was 22, but with my husband since 18. So I haven't even
had to deal with
seen
it.
Yeah. But so I'm living vicariously through people on TikTok, through friends that are single. And I'm just like, I don't envy this dating pool whatsoever.
No. And then going back to attachment, like a lot of the people that are out there are the avoidants, right? Yeah. So you have people that are in it, and then, it's getting too close, so I go, and we're just telling different narratives. Like, so we have to make sure our narrative of what we're saying, who we are, is matching like what we actually want. We have to make sure that we're doing that.
Yeah. So for someone who is in the dating scene, they're healed, they know what they want, and they are at that level of like attracting that equal partner.
Yeah.
What are some red flags for them that someone is still healing and not ready to date?
Yeah. And I kind of want to separate too. Like, you can still be healing and like be in a relationship, but I would say be with somebody who's secure, because they can hold space for you to heal.
Yes.
Right. But if you're like healing and then you're with an avoidant, that's not going to work. So so I think that's a great point. So red flags, right? People who are not going to communicate, people who are dishonest, who are inconsistent. Some men or women, but men especially, like I've heard them tell their partners verbatim, I don't want this relationship, I don't want this, and they still want to be with them, right? And so like hearing and believing what they're saying and what they're doing and like observing their behavior is going to be huge for looking for those red flags. So, but communication is key. If you see that they start to kind of veer off and distance themselves when you're just trying to have a conversation, that's a sign that they're really not emotionally ready to be invested.
Yes. Yeah, that's good. And also, like, how can someone maintain a healthy relationship once they do get into it? Because I know, like, let's just say you're someone that's secure.
Yeah.
And you do provide space for someone who maybe isn't that a secure attachment yet. They're still kind of healing.
Yeah.
And so you're giving them that space and you're, in this relationship. How do you maintain it in a healthy way? Because I feel like it could be easy for someone who is secure to maybe slip out of that a little bit if they're with somebody who's not healed and not in a secure attachment. Yeah,
that's a good point. Because it is easier to pull someone down than to pull someone up, right? So it would be an easier slip for that to happen. But
and you get comfortable in relationship too, where you're just like, all right, it's easy
you kind of slide right into that. But I think like because you're secure, you are someone who's really big on communication. So you're going to keep that up. You're going to politely call out things that you see, right? Like, hey, I noticed that you're distancing when we're doing this. Like, I don't like to play games. Like, tell me what you want or don't, or, have those real hard conversations. And I think like what's failing a lot with relationships now, like not only because we have so many choices, I could get all over with this with analysis paralysis and wanting something more, but also that like people don't realize how much work it is. And so they see it's so easy to go back out there. And so like, it takes work. So like you're looking for those things like, let's communicate, let's talk. Like, it might look rough for the first 2 or 3 years where we're having conversations all the time, but like it'll get easier. Yeah. Just like any profession, right? You work your tail off for however many years until you get it, and then it's smooth, right? Or it's smoother, right? And that's the same thing with relationships, but people just fear that, or they don't want to. They think it should just be easy right away. And now that people are getting older and older and not together, I think you actually did it really smart because you guys got to grow up together and learn together. But think about it, for these people who are in their 30s and 40s, have not been in a relationship, like you're kind of set in your ways. So it's going to take more effort for you to really work with somebody as opposed to being with somebody younger and kind of growing up together, right? Yeah. And so I think that communication and talking about your feelings and emotions, as cliche as that sounds, is really the key to success.
It's interesting that you said that, because I've actually thought, I'm like, we've always talked about that, like how, we did grow up together. We saw each other's entire 20s and all the crazy phases of that and the growth that comes along with your 20s. And so, I thought, I'm like, man, did we do this right? Or like, maybe we should have healed and then got together, but we've like healed together because as you were explaining, like this open communication in a relationship and having that, and like, it's not easy.
No.
We spent the whole like first half of our relationship so my husband is also an avoidant.
Okay.
So we have two avoidants together. And then Eileen, sometimes fearful too. But yeah, so it was interesting for our first half of our relationship. We didn't have that open communication. And so we almost had to like heal that together. And then our relationship now looks completely different than it did like 5 years ago.
That's awesome.
Because we just weren't talking at all. We didn't have like we just avoided. We were like, okay.
Right.
We're
sweep
just
it
not,
under the rug because a surface level relationship is easy, but then people look at your relationship that you have now and they're like, I want that. And it's like,
I'm like, you have no idea what it took to get here.
There, right?
Yes.
Like, the same people going in the workforce, like, I want to be a CEO. Like, no, baby, like you got to start here. And people don't want that anymore. There's a lot of entitlement and a lot of instant gratification. And like, you see that in relationships too. Like, if it's not how I want it on the first date, they don't even get a second. What the hell? They're nervous on the first date. You're nervous on the first date. Why would you want that? Like, as long as they like were polite and kind to you and didn't do anything like maybe against your values or like blatantly, obviously wrong, go on a second date.
Yeah.
Like people are just running too fast.
Yeah. And I feel like a first date, you're nervous. You barely even scratch the surface as far as like who the person is.
Exactly. And attraction grows. Like physical attraction can grow when the emotional attraction and the love grows. And people forget that too. Like they don't have to be a 10 right away. Like as long as you're not like totally not attracted to them, like there's space to let it grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have a workshop. It's called Solo to Soulmate.
Yes.
And you work with all singles, not just women or more so women?
Yeah. So I just started it. So I'm kind of like tweaking it now. I did a small group and it started with just women, but then I had some feedback of like, let's bring men in here too. So I'm just like pausing right now to be like, what should I do? But the goal of this is like how to tackle your dating profile to actually weed out the people you don't want and attract the people you want. So kind of everything that we talked about today, like how to be authentic on there. And so it was really fun when I did kind of like my training group of like getting feedback and stuff. Like I went over their profiles and I looked at their pictures and I was like, here's what your pictures are telling me. Is this the story that you want to tell? Is this, and they're like, no, I don't think it is actually, or they had profiles that were super cute. They were funny, like on the surface, nothing wrong with it, but it's not going to weed out. Right. Like, so it's like asking the questions, putting in the work to help do that. But it is hard when the pool, I'm realizing the pool out there.
Yeah, it's like rough. You're like you're not in it, but you're like in it with clients. So you're really seeing.
I do. Yeah. I'll swipe with clients. I'll be like, tell me what you think about this profile because I want to get in their head.
Yeah.
Like, tell me what you're seeing. And so, the whole workshop is to help people kind of like put their best foot forward, but also like at the same time, like have their profile do the work for them.
Right? So it sounds like you're doing like a total audit of their dating life.
That's it. That's a beautiful way to look at it. And we start with like attachment. So I give them an attachment quiz. Like, here's your attachment style. We'll talk about that, what this could look like in your relationships. And then we do the value work and then we talk about that. And then we kind of like revamp the profile and say, okay, now let's match this to this. So it's kind of cool.
I feel like workshop can mean different things for people though. Yeah. So what does your workshop look like? Is this like a X amount a week course that they're working with you each week or what is it, a group thing or what does that look like?
Yeah, I think it's really fluid right now because I want to learn and grow from people who like have taken it, and I've only had one. So I'm learning and growing so far of like, what does that look like? But right now it's a 3-hour course, like in person, and it's a group. And then they get 4 follow-ups with me, like one-on-one follow-ups. So if they want, so like if they want to like text me, get on FaceTime and like go over like the situation they're in, or like dating apps, or like here's where I'm at with this conversation, or I just need some feedback, like that, they get that 4 of those 15-minute calls after the workshop.
That's awesome. And I know, like, if I was single, I would love something like this because you don't know how it's kind of nice to have like a mirror held up or like an audit done.
And I'm not your
like,
mom or your best friend that's going to be like, yes, girl. Like I told someone, I was like,
Yes.
hey, did you know that you had food in your teeth in this photo? And they're like, no.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
like, okay, that's what I'm here. Because people are too timid sometimes to like tell that. And I'm like, I'm here to help you. And like sometimes help looks like it's not going to feel good all the time, or you're going to feel like, oh, there's some tension here, but it's sometimes things that you need to hear and not always want to hear.
Yeah. Yes, so true.
Yeah.
And huge for dating.
Yeah.
And sounds like, especially in this day and age, there's a
hard.
lot going
There's
on.
so much.
Yes. So how can someone listening work with you? Do you offer something for someone who isn't local to St. Louis? Who can work with you and just give us all, pimp yourself out.
Perfect. I love it. All the deeds. So I work with clients in person in Creve Coeur. And I also work with any client in the state of Missouri virtually. So if you're not local, I can work with you virtually. I have a website, stl-ccc.org. Under counselors, you can find my information there. I'm on Instagram. So my personal page is at Claire Lily with 1 L, Welton. And then at Jesus_in-therapy. So you can email me, can DM me. I give out free consultations. So a 15-minute consultation for you to ask any questions to see if it's a good fit. Because I always say, like, finding a therapist is like dating. Like, you have to find a good fit for it to work. So I offer free consultations, and I'm taking and accepting clients. I use EMDR, EFT, CBT. I work with individuals, couples, and premarital counseling.
Yeah. EMDR is huge too, because I heard that is like an easy gateway drug to therapy.
That's funny. Really? I have not heard that.
Because it doesn't involve talking. It's a way, right?
It's less talking.
Okay.
Yeah, it's less talking.
That's why I've heard that.
I have people like scared of it. But yes, it's less talking. It's like how we were talking about like switching the brain earlier. Like it's like a really quick way to do that. We're doing neurological work instead of just like psychological work. So it's pretty intense. It's really cool. It's awesome.
Okay. I just always heard that like people who don't love the idea of like talk therapy, where they're just sitting on a couch and like, talking about their stuff. Like I've heard that EMDR is like a great way to like integrate therapy into your life, but not straight out the gate.
Yeah, I would say, because it's so, it can be a lot. Like I don't think I've ever had a client not cry when we've done it. It's very deep for like trauma or PTSD or deeply rooted thoughts or beliefs. But yeah, you're right. You're holding, like I give my clients like tappers. They're like buzzers in their hands, and that activates the left and the right side of the brain. And then they're kind of like working through, and then I do quick check-ins. So it's not like long drawn out. I'm just, what are you thinking? Where are you at? Okay, go with that. And we kind of keep going, and a lot can come up.
Wow. Yeah. So is that, I guess EMDR can only be done in person, or can you do it virtually? Yeah,
you can do it virtually. I'd recommend in person. I think it's a lot more effective because that tool is, I think, the most effective. But yeah, it can be done virtually. For those of you out there, do not do it at home. Don't download the app. Don't go on YouTube because you can disassociate. So don't do that.
Oh, no.
Be in the presence of a therapist to do it. Yeah, cool.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Claire, thank you so much for coming on and sharing today. Like this has been an amazing episode, and I feel like I've just gained so much sitting here talking to you. So I know everybody listening has as well.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been really fun. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope it's helpful for people as a resource.
100%.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. We made it. Technology.
As always, I appreciate you all so much for listening. My goal is for these episodes to at least help one person in some aspect of their life. So if you like what you hear, don't forget to follow, like, subscribe to the show, as well as follow us on social media at Inside Voice Pod. Thanks.